Howdy folks, Kathy Williams-DeVries here with you again, and today we are looking at D major and B minor. We're looking at two sharps, F and C. My primary school music teacher used to say D major, two sharps, F and C, fish and chips, and that's how I've always remembered it, even over 25 years later. That's Mr. Fenlon. I don't know if you're still around, but I think you were brilliant, and you were my first clarinet teacher. D major, two sharps, and of course in B minor you've got to contend with a G sharp and an A sharp in the melodic. Now we will be looking at using B minor. Because of the F sharp, G sharp and A sharp, you will have to, it's a good workout for the left hand. In the arpeggios and broken chords, we will be looking at different top F sharp fingerings. And in B minor, in the Thurston and Baermann, we will be looking also at the left-handed low F sharp going to the right-handed G sharp, and also a forked B natural, which I did mention in my alternate fingerings video a little last week. So we start with D major. In the Thurston, it's got a couple of finger exercises before that. F sharp going to E sharp to G. This is where we use the forked fingering, and what I mean by forked fingering is that to go from an F to an F sharp, you hit this little sliver key or banana key here, and it kind of looks in your hands like a fork. That's why we call it a forked fingering, and it's very beneficial to use that fingering to go from E sharp or F to F sharp. And that's what these finger exercises do. And that's for the, and also going from a B flat to a B natural, or an A sharp to a B natural, lower down the 12th, because you're going to need to use that. But we'll come to that. So, no huge dramas with the D major scale, although the going from a low E to an F sharp and up the 12th from a B to a C sharp, I do recommend you use the left hand B to go to the right hand C sharp, and the low left hand E going to the C sharp can get a bit clunky. I do recommend that you practice it. Just so that you don't go, hey, you don't want that. So the D major goes up to a top F sharp. Just use the regular fingering. I wouldn't even bother using the sliver key. It's only a semiquaver. It's not going to matter a huge deal. And be careful not to put the E flat key on too soon. Do not put the E flat key on when you are playing a C sharp. It will be way too sharp, and I did say that when we were doing D minor. So again, I used the left hand F sharp this time, simply because you can do it both ways, but why I did it was in preparation for the B minor, where you need to go to a G sharp. Of course, that's only in the melodic. And right here, immediately, you start on the forked fingering for B minor, using the sliver key, because you are going to an A sharp, or B flat for the enharmonic name. So, and to get that really smooth. You may want to practice that a few times. And here I do use the left hand F sharp so I can get to that G sharp. Of course, if you are doing the harmonic minor, you want a really clean G to A sharp. I wasn't completely convinced mine was. So it does get a little bit fiddly. So practice that both ways. You can put the sliver key on for the top F sharp if you want. Again, it's only a semiquaver. It's not really going to stick out all that much. So I think what we need to look at is really clean fingering from the B to C sharp, and also down the octave B, C sharp, D sharp, Well, now we come to the interrupted scales. No real drama in the D major. Oops! What key am I in? Maybe watch between the B and the C sharp. Again, don't put the E flat key on for the C, and you want a really smooth transition between the B and the C sharp. Now when we come to B minor, you want a really clean transition between the B and C sharp. And there is some tricky left hand work there. You may want to take those particular bits out on the D. And again, you want smooth transitions between the F sharp, G sharp and A sharp. From there, we then come to the scales interrupted at the octave in the Klose, and it can be found on page 163 of my book. No real drama in D major. No real drama there. And the real fun is the B minor. Oops, I'm playing B minor, not B major. Really smooth transitions with those fiddly left hand bits. And then on the way down, etc. And of course the harmonic. Again, really smooth transitions between the G and the A sharp. And then from there we go on to the returning scale. No huge drama. What I like about this particular set of scales is that you're not starting on the tonic. I think one of the best indications that you know your scales is that you can start the scale on any degree and still be able to play the scale. For example, and I don't think they ever ask it in exams, but say they might say, can you start the D major scale on the A? Etc. And this particular returning scale starts on the F sharp. What you want is a really strong B to C sharp. You may actually need to get your clarinet adjusted so that that's a bit easier. I know that on cheap clarinets they can get pretty clunky. Be aware that you can hold the right hand down. So that's fairly straightforward. And at the end, for some reason, they have an E sharp. I'm not sure why they do that. They did that in G major as well. I use the left hand E sharp because it's an F natural, but that's just my personal preference. From there we go to our arpeggios, or broken chords. In D major, fairly straightforward. I would prefer to use the overblown B flat for my F sharp. But that's just my preference. And you can also do the same with B minor. So that's fairly straightforward. I do prefer to slur my arpeggios to get a nice legato going. However, with the broken chords on page 16 of the Baermann, I would probably prefer to use the long F sharp, 1 2 1 2 3 E flat key. I don't trust the that F sharp, and I don't trust that I can overblown the B from an A. See, it'll just come out as an E flat. So I think that's your best F sharp. Although in the second half of it, I would use the overblown B flat. I mean, it's completely up to you. It's very personal. With the B minor, similarly, I would use that same F sharp. So that's pretty straightforward. Then we come to our diminished chords. The top G, I would probably prefer to use the G fingering with the C sharp so that it comes out. Be careful not to leave the pinky finger on for the C sharp, it'll come out too sharp, as I said before. And again. And then after the repeats you've got the sixths. And I do recommend that these sixths and sevenths that you practice them slowly so that you get a really good legato, especially when you're going. So that, and now we come to our diminished seventh. In D major, our diminished seventh starts on a C sharp, and the particular diminished seventh that has a C sharp in it is the one that also starts on E. So I've been through these with you before. You only really need to learn the 3 different diminished sevenths and then just start on different notes of the scale. So, and just be sure not to put the C sharp key down. Well, actually, in case you haven't been watching my earlier videos, but you can start them, of course. But if you're unclear on how to do the diminished chords of the seventh, then by all means go back to my earlier videos. And then once we have those, we're looking at the scales at the third. Just you might want to figure out what top G you want to use. I would probably use the G fingering with the C sharp key. But the D major isn't such of a hassle. You want a strong B to C sharp though. I prefer to use the overblown B flat, but you can of course use the regular fingering. Don't leave the little finger on for the C sharp, and likely you want a good transition between the B and the C sharp. But there's no real dramas there. The B minor scale in thirds is fun. That's a really good left hand exercise on its own. Really good. Even, well, actually the whole thing's brilliant. And after the repeat we're going from B to A sharp, so you're going to want to use the fork fingering again. And again, that's a really good left hand exercise. And then from there, the scales in thirds, we've done everything else. We're looking at the scales in sixths. In D major, for the top F sharp, if you're going from an A, I would choose the long F sharp. And again, I preferred to use the left hand C sharp there. It's completely your choice. The B minor is fun because it starts off sounding like it's in B major, but then you have the D natural. And here for the long A sharp, you can use the long fingering. You don't have to use the regular fingering. And then the 4 last bars of it are really good as well. And because you're using this G sharp, you will have to use the right hand B, left hand C sharp. Now, that's the scales in 6. You've also got the scales in 6 in the Klose. And here, what have we got? Where's D major? There it is. I would also practice it. I was probably practicing the wrong one. I was. And then in the minor, what's the minor one look like? Oh, this one's interesting. I like this. This is a funny rhythm. You could use the long A sharp there. And of course in the harmonic. Etc. So that's D major. Fingerings we have learned. Try and get a really strong left hand B to right hand C sharp. Be aware that you need in the melodic to use the right hand the right hand low E to the left hand F sharp so that you can get to the G sharp. Use the forked fingering for the B if you have to go to the A sharp. And give your left hand a little bit of a challenge by taking out the returning scale, the interrupted scale. So that's it for D major and B minor. Key coming up next will be B flat major and G minor. So thanks for listening. Please join me for the next video, and don't forget to check out my daily vlog.